Nobody's Business, a podcast for all those subjects we've been trained to avoid. Here's your respectfully irreverent host, Keith Shelton.
Good evening, everybody. I love that respectfully irreverent moniker. I wear it proudly. Thank you. Everybody's told me for many years I don't play well with others. Well, here I am. Thank you all for joining us tonight. I believe we're going to have a very interesting show for you, hopefully a very inspirational show for you. And as many of you remember, I've told you that what we're doing now in my later years is basically a recreation of what I thought was a very successful but short career as a radio talk show host from back in the days. My last couple of years of law school and a little bit afterwards called State Your Business. It was a business-oriented talk show, and we generally try to talk about things that was of interest to a lot of people, business people especially. Talked legal issues, news of the day, had some special guests on that were very interesting, and developed a fairly loyal following. And I was very proud of it, and thought maybe I might want to be the next Rush Limbaugh, but then I hung my shingle out and started practicing law, and that kind of sent me in a different direction. So here we are. We're going to try to see if we can do it on the downhill slide with all this new technology. I'm just proud to be here. I want to introduce my co-host, my co-pilot, if you will, my son, JT Shelton.
Hey, everybody. Thanks for having me back. How's it going?
Well, no need to delay any longer. I told y'all that we thought we'd have a very interesting show tonight, and what I believe should be an inspirational show tonight. We have a special guest who I would refer to as a young man, Mr. Dennis Smith.
Hey,
there he is.
How you doing?
Dennis, welcome. Glad to have you tonight.
Glad to be here.
And for those of you who don't know, I've known Dennis for many years. Dennis, you and I met in the spring of 1981.
That's right.
In the big metroplex of Gallman, Mississippi.
Tiny little, yeah, exactly. Tiny little town.
Well, Dennis, turned out I was hired to become the head basketball coach of the boys team and for Kapai Academy, Kapai Educational Foundation, small private school in Gallman, Mississippi. And basically it was there. It's an unincorporated community, but it was almost exactly halfway between Crystal Springs, Mississippi, and Hazelhurst, Mississippi.
Right.
And so the school population was made up of both kids from Crystal Springs and from Hazelhurst. And spring of 81 is when I met Mr. Dennis Smith. Dennis, you remember them days?
I remember. I do. I remember. We were very excited because we had heard that we had a new basketball coach, and our last basketball coach, we struggled so bad the year before, and just we were just it was a tough year, and we had heard through the principal and through the grapevine, oh, we got a new basketball coach, and he's good, he knows what he's doing, we and we were like, all right, we were so excited, like, okay, we can't wait. We had no idea what to expect, but we were all excited. I know that.
Well, Dennis, I'm glad you've never told me that, but I'm glad. Oh, yeah. I'm glad there were some good expectations. Well, we started practice as soon as school was out. Started summer practices. We practiced, and then we'd try to scrimmage a little. Try to scrimmage a little. But in the first several weeks, all we did was practice. I'm sure.
Very much so. We were very unskilled. We were very raw.
Did he start off by making everybody stand around the 3-point line, and he did about 45 minutes of talking and what the fundamentals of basketball were?
Well, I do remember, absolutely. We did get in our circle, and we did listen to the pregame speech always. The inspirational speech of the day, for sure.
I'll never forget the first practice I had with him. Dad was my coach too. first practice we had, I don't think we actually did any practicing. I think we just did a whole session of him teaching us the fundamentals of basketball.
Well, I wish, I could say the same. I'm pretty sure we ran a lot that first practice.
Oh, now don't get
me. I do remember. I do remember some of the stuff that we did.
I'm going to show up on the screen for everybody this wonderful picture here. Just look at that mustache that Keith has going on back. And when was this picture taken?
That would be in 1981.
Yeah, that would be 1981.
This is you on the right, number 40, right, Dennis?
That's me on the right. Yeah, exactly. The Magnum PI, right? Had to be. Right?
Well, JT, put that photo back up there for just a second. I want everybody to understand Dennis is the one on the far right, number 40, smallest one on the team. How much did you weigh soaking wet, Dennis?
I was probably 100 pounds.
Okay. Well, one of the reasons that Dennis's testimony is so interesting is what we're going to cover in our first part of our segment tonight. But Dennis, in our summer practices, I was trying to teach y'all things, and it was obvious to me nobody had ever taught y'all how. Somebody can draw X's and O's all day long, and they can say, pass here, cut there, but if they never taught you how to do it, wasn't going to be a lot of success coming from that. And that's what I saw when I first got there. So let's talk about our summer ball playing,
Absolutely.
summer workouts. I tried to teach y'all. Like I said, I think we worked out for several weeks, and we worked out at least twice a week, if not 3 times a week.
I think more. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, tell everybody what happened when I asked my brothers and my church team to come down and scrimmage y'all.
Well, we were raw. We were a raw group of kids. I mean, and really I remember those, and I talked to some of my teammates, and one of the things, like we couldn't use our offhand. We were bad at, didn't know if we were right-handed. We couldn't dribble with the left, jump stop, all the things you should know as a basketball player. Maybe Greg Reed, who had played a lot of basketball, probably the only one of us who'd really played a lot of basketball at the time. But the rest of us were like, we didn't know the fundamentals. So we really had to learn the fundamentals of everything. And coach he decides to have a scrimmage, and we're excited. Okay, we're going to get to play some. Okay, but we didn't know he's going to bring these adults, down to play us. We're thinking, okay,
Dennis, these were old men.
Old, they're old. We might be able to take them. No.
Just for clarification, Keith is the shortest of 5 brothers, and he's 6'2". So when he brought his brothers, you're talking these are grown men coming to play high school kids.
Exactly. And we were wrong. They weren't old. They were just tough. They were good and tough. Oh, they just whipped us. It was bad.
Well, here's what I'm going to say, Dennis. By the time we got all through with the summer and we were ready to start school, y'all could compete. But I tell you, that first night, I had to blow that whistle every 10 seconds, it seemed like, to stop y'all and show you why what you had just done turned the ball over, or why you couldn't get the ball down the court.
No, it was horrible. You're right. We couldn't handle the ball. We couldn't handle pressure. Yeah, nothing. It was bad.
Well, just think about it, though. Over the summer, y'all did great. I was proud of you, and it gave me hope for the following season. I was proud of you because y'all did learn to compete. And let me tell you, when you could play my brothers and our church team and compete, never beat them, but you could compete with them. I said, hey, they're learning. They're making progress. And the main thing you learned was discipline, because I kept trying to tell y'all, if you do it this way, here's what your result's going to be. And if you don't do this, here's what's not going to happen to you. So
absolutely. We were drilled in the fundamentals of everything. Triple threat, jump stop, don't leave your feet, just all the things that you had to know. Catch the ball with both hands. I mean, just things that taken for granted we didn't know. And you're right. I do remember competing against your brothers, and I do remember getting better as the summer went on. Like, they beat us, but we we got tougher against it. And we also learned to be tough, something we weren't before. We were not a tough team.
Well, you
So we
didn't have
also
any
learned-
choice. You didn't have any choice but to toughen up playing with Keith Shelton.
Oh, that 100%. 100%.
He had his little tricks. Everybody knows the Keith Shelton tricks. He may not play much anymore, but you'd get a nice little knuckle in the side. You'd get a arm tucked under him. You'd get a stepping on the toe, and he'd stand on. He put his entire body weight on top of your foot. You couldn't move. You think you're about to go get a pass? You think you're about to get a stray ball? Not happening.
100%.
I have no idea what y'all are talking about. I have no idea.
3-on-3 and 4-on-4 games where he would play with us, and we love to play, but boy, we wanted no part of. I mean, he'd hit us with the hardest screens you've ever seen. Blockouts were the hardest blockouts, and
you got to go get checked for a concussion. You got to get checked for a concussion if they hit you with one of those screens.
What can I do to avoid this getting hit with the screen? But we'd always get hit, no matter what. He didn't know what a moving screen was, JT.
Well, Dennis, let me say this to you. I do believe that everywhere I went to coach, the first words out of my mouth, prior to me coming here, all you've heard is that basketball is a non-contact sport, you have been lied to. You remember that?
Oh, yeah. Oh, absolutely. And it was no nonsense toughness. It was just no nonsense toughness. But it made us super tough. I mean, absolutely. Once we started playing the regular season, we were tough. We were a tough team. Absolutely.
I was so proud of you guys. Well, look, here's why I wanted to talk about the summer, because our gym was open to anybody. I mean, I didn't know a lot of local people there yet. I did have some parents. I had obviously met the principal and a few board members, and obviously met the girls coach, and obviously met my players. But I didn't know a lot of people. But my thing was that I wanted the community to see what we had going on. I wanted them to get excited because I'd heard about, your prior seasons. I think y'all had won like 2 games in the prior 2 years. And
horrible.
Nobody showed up for games. Basketball was nothing but an expense to the athletic budget. And,
yep.
And,
it was very much
there.
It was a football school, very much. No.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what it was.
Well, I was there to try to,
change that.
Well, you couldn't take away from football. My gosh,
they were very good.
CA had just the most unbelievable football program. It's just solid as a rock. So you couldn't take anything away from football. But my thing was I wanted basketball to start carrying its own weight, and so that's why the gym would be open for anybody to come in and watch us, and anybody wanted to come up and meet me after either during a break or after practice was over. I was glad to do it. And lo and behold, this very handsome young man, kind of on the short side, came up to me after practice. I think it was during a break. Y'all were getting some water or catching your breath or something, and introduced himself and found out he was your dad. And that was the time I met your dad. And Dennis, I'm going to say a heartfelt thing to you. He told me about what you had to overcome in your early, very tender years coming into this world. And I'm not going to tell your story for you, but he did tell me about your medical history and things like that. And I certainly didn't go easy on you because I hadn't gone easy on you before. I had this chance to talk to your dad and hear this information from your dad. So I certainly wasn't going to turn around and go easy on you then, because you had already proved to me you were just what I wanted in toughness and intensity and focus.
Yep.
And so
I wanted to compete. That's for sure.
I wasn't going to change anything, but I'm going to tell you this, Dennis. When he told me what you had to overcome and what a miracle you were to even be there, it opened up a big, big hole in my heart for you. And man, I just cannot tell you I'm sitting here watching this kid take charges. I'm sitting here watching this kid just be like a sponge for anything I could teach him or show him. And you were so wanting to compete and wanting to be good at what you were doing. And man, when he had taken me over to the side and told me, about your history, your medical history, I can just tell you, you did have a special place in my heart after that. So I'm not going to steal your thunder. I want you to tell everybody what we're talking about.
Well, yeah, I was born premature. My mom, I was born about 2 months premature, and this was in 1964. So at birth, I weighed 2 pounds and 10 ounces. And that was not the issue. The other issue was, of course, that's a big issue to begin with. But the other issue I had was my esophagus was not attached correctly. So immediately they weren't sure whether I was going to make it. So I was baptized right away. And then they had to do surgery immediately. So I know they went in around my rib area, of course I would, put me to sleep, or went around my rib area, around my back, and then went up and tried to reattach my esophagus so it would, go to my stomach. So my food tube would be correct. And of course, now that's traumatic for, anybody, but it's traumatic for a newborn that weighs 2 pounds and 10 ounces. So
Dennis, when were you born? What time period are we talking about?
This was May 9th, 1964. This was 1964.
1964. There wasn't I don't know of a whole lot of advances in neonatal care in 1964.
Yeah. No, times have changed. That's for sure. And it was rough. I talked to my sister because I wasn't sure. I called her today. I said, "How long was I in the hospital for?" And she said almost 3 months. I was in an incubator. They put me in an incubator, and I was just touch and go. And the other terrible thing that happened was I got sick, but I was allergic to penicillin. So penicillin being the number one antibiotic, of course, I was allergic to it.
Back in those days, yeah.
Yes, exactly. So that was also bad. So it was rough. But 3 months, in an incubator, 3 months in the hospital, finally well enough to come out, and again, nothing but, thank the Lord that I'm here. That's it.
Yeah. Praise the Lord for that.
Yep, exactly.
I mean, I immediately, formed the impression in my mind. I mean, you're a walking miracle to be here.
Yeah, very
on this
thankful.
basketball court, and here I am wearing your butt out. And
I wouldn't have it any other way though, because
and that's why I say, Dennis,
I'm a vicious competitor, but you're right. It was tough, and then from age 0, maybe, from birth to age 4, I still had a lot of issues because it was tough for me to eat. My esophagus was thin. So I didn't weigh very much, and then I would choke quite a bit. So they have to be very careful at what I ate, and obviously if you can't eat, healthy meat, protein, you weren't going to weigh very much. So, that was a slow start that I got off to, maybe by the age 5, I was able to start eating a little more correct food, solid food, meat. But those first 4 years were tough. I was choking a lot. And, of course, that was scary, of course,
Oh, goodness.
Yeah, exactly. So so that's what I remember. And then, as I grew older, of course, I was small, of course, but that didn't bother me. Once I got a little healthier, I wanted to be like any other kid. I was going to go play. I was going to make friends. I was going to go do crazy things just like anybody else. But I was very small, and still had that. If I got sick, because I was allergic to penicillin, it was tough. So if I got like bronchitis as a child, they had to put me on something else, and it just took longer and longer and longer for me to get well. So, and then, so that was like my early years for sure.
Well, about what time in your life was it that you've kind of got the idea that the worst was over, and maybe I can have a life like most other kids my age?
Probably, I'd say early out, maybe third grade, somewhere around there, maybe. More toward, I was still super small. And then, but maybe more toward, as I got more toward middle school, I got a little bigger, gained a little weight, and, playing with friends, started playing sports, and things like that. I was always interested in sports. I love sports from a young age. My whole family, they were golfers now. They didn't play much of anything else. I was not great at golf. I tried. I did.
You're
I
like
wanted to
me.
be
Welcome
great.
to the
I wanted
club,
to be
Dennis.
good 'cause my entire family was good at it. But I ended up trying a little bit of everything. But yeah, I still play. I still love golf, but I've never been able to master it. That's for sure.
Well, did you do all your growing up in Crystal Springs?
Oh, yes, sir. I did. Yeah. All the way through
Okay.
high school in Crystal Springs. Yes, sir. Yep.
So before I got there, what about like a little dribblers program or summer baseball?
Yeah, I played a little base. I played little league and pony league and baseball, and I was still small. I can remember. Here's another story for you. I remember my first little league tryout, and I was tiny, and I can't remember what age I was, but I was the youngest age group. They put us on third base and like hit third base, and they hit the ball to us, throw to first. I couldn't even get the ball to first.
Oh my goodness!
Yeah.
Oh my
It's like I'm
goodness!
thinking to myself, why are they putting me on third base? Like I can't really, but I don't even know that I got picked, honestly. I remember going home thinking I didn't even get picked. And my dad says, "Oh, you got picked on this." I go, "No, I didn't. I didn't even hear my name called." And I was mad. I was livid, and it's, I didn't get my
Oh
name.
my goodness!
I was just not happy, He goes, "Yeah, you did." I go, "Okay, Jack might have paid somebody. I don't know what he did, but I got on a team. But I was not good until my last year. Now, here's my competitive nature, Keith. I wanted to be good. So in those days, you didn't have travel baseball like you do today. You couldn't play a lot. You had to figure out a way to play, right? Almost by yourself. I took a tennis ball and I threw it against a brick wall to catch it 2 to 3 hours a day for 1 year.
Awesome.
Yep.
That doesn't surprise me a bit, Dennis.
I was just out there every day catching it every day. And by last year, I played second base, all-star team, that kind of thing. But that's because I was super competitive. I was just viciously competitive. Like I want to be good. So exactly. So, and then I played a little pony league. So I played a little baseball, a little golf growing up. There were no programs. That's the thing. We didn't have those basketball programs like they do today. We didn't have coaches and events. And it was because, again, small town, right? Crystal Springs has, and just it wasn't the way it is today, where you can seek out coaches and programs all over the place. You play year round.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, did your teammates know about your medical history?
I don't think they did. They did not. I don't think they knew about my being premature. I don't believe so.
Mm-hmm.
No, I don't think they did. I never really talked about it, and because I didn't want to. I didn't want anybody, first of all, to even feel sorry for me. I wanted to compete and be good, and then I didn't at that point when I started playing high school and started trying different sports. I never even thought about it as being, I never thought of myself as being different. I knew I was small. I knew I had to be tough and I had to do everything I could to compete with the bigger kids. That's for sure. But I never thought about that as a drawback.
It's definitely a testimony, but it didn't define you.
Right. Exactly.
I think that's remarkable, Dennis. All right. A delicate question. While you were in the years that I came to know you, in your competitive years, Did you have anything in the back of your mind that made you worry that something? I mean, if you took a lick too hard, if your esophagus was delicately reattached, and made to be in the right place and made to work, and you had to be so careful for all those early years. Did you ever have anything in the back of your mind that made you kind of hesitate or not?
I wasn't really afraid of that at all. Honestly, I didn't. I never really thought about that. Honestly, to like if anything would go wrong. No, my issue was if I got sick, like bronchitis or something, or it was tougher for me to get well, and maybe that had something to do with it. I don't know. Lung capacity, all that. That's nature. Again, I had to be on different antibiotics. I couldn't be on penicillin, things of that nature.
Yeah.
I had quite a few issues. I had ear issues, ear tubes, for like 10 years straight. I had to take shots for my allergies. So I had quite a few different things, but the esophagus, no, I honestly, once I got older and I wasn't choking anymore, I was fine. I didn't think about it, honestly.
Okay. Well, where do you think your fierce competitiveness comes from? Because that was, like I said, when your dad told me, I'm sitting here, I've already watched you get your butt splattered on the court, a number of times. And it's like I said, when I would teach you something, man, you would take it to heart. And I would teach you how to take a charge and when to take a charge. I mean, I saw you get knocked into the wall underneath the goal a time or two. And
if Keith didn't put you there himself.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, Dennis, you were just that tough.
Yeah. I don't know. I love growing up watching sports, and it's probably a Southern thing, right? Just loving all sports and watching on TV, listening on the radio, and then competing with my friends at different things, like I said, I would go over to Greg's and Jimmy's, and we'd play basketball. We go, we'd play different sports, whatever, play baseball with my friends, and our football team was very good, so that was exciting watching them win. Of course, we wanted the kids that played the other sports wanted to win just as badly because they were so successful. So we wanted to achieve some success in whatever sports we were playing in high school as well. So maybe that had something to do with it.
Well, what made you want to get, and I'm talking about our sport, basketball, what made you want to get fiercely good at basketball? Why was basketball your sport of choice?
Well, it really was Greg. I have to give Greg credit here. Greg moved down from Illinois, and we became friends. I think we played in a church league basketball game against each other, and it was testy because he was really good and I was competitive. And I remember, like, we didn't like each other. Like we wanted to win those games so bad, and then somehow I met him I don't know how I met him somehow through a friend or something, and then we became best friends. But it was through, we were actually rivals at this church, at the Methodist church, in these games,
How old were y'all at this time?
Oh, this was 10th grade. I think 10th grade year. We were probably 15, 16, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, I didn't know that, man. The way I saw you and Greg, and well, like I said, I mean, I had a great bunch of guys, but you and Greg just seemed like, man, y'all have been best friends.
Yeah, we were. We were, because I would go to his house. We would play basketball constantly. Go to the park. Go to Jimmy Ingram's house. Play basketball. So we were playing. Once I started playing with Greg, and Greg was so good. It's like, okay, it was enjoyable playing with him because he was excellent, had a great shot, and
he was definitely gifted.
We were both huge sports fans. We liked pro basketball. We'd watch the games together, things of that, and like I said, we'd go out to the park and play. Now Greg was not afraid to go out to the park and play against the man at the park, at the city park, which, I was like hesitant. I'm like, I do not want to go out there you know, and play against these grown men. So, like I said, I was telling JT, some smoking cigarettes, dribbling the basketball. I mean, Greg would be, oh, let's go. We're going. You know, I said, yeah, you're good. You know, they would pick Greg for sure. You know, and every now and then I'd get in the game, but you know, I'd sit there and good job, good job. You
We
know.
called that the concrete jungle in Texarkana.
Yeah.
You went out there. There was no foul calling.
Oh,
and if
it
was
was
because somebody's pride was real hurt.
It was tough.
And you walked away with bloody lips.
Yeah.
You walked away with busted noses, scratches. It didn't matter. You were playing against it was real deal at the concrete jungle.
It was.
Well, Dennis, you remember the first time you and Greg invited me to go with y'all to the city park and play?
Oh, I do. We wanted, we wanted people to go and and get tougher and play, and we knew that would help us. Absolutely. Yeah.
Well, that was good. You know, I don't know that we made a point of doing it, but I know that the three of us showed up at that city park a lot of nights. Now, have you got some stories you want to tell about that year?
Oh, absolutely.
That I had you after we started those. After we got back into school after the summer practices.
We did. We had some great practices. You know, like I said, I remember all our 3-on-3, 4-on-4 games, and working out and running and being tough. And I told you that I knew that I had to be in great shape. You know, and Jimmy was so darn fast. Jimmy would usually win the sprints. And I'm like, I got to keep up with Jimmy. I was competitive, so I would literally each morning before school started get up and around my block was a half mile. I'd get up and run the half mile before I took a shower in the morning. Then I'd shower and eat breakfast, then go to school. So every single morning I'd run half a mile. So it's like, I want to be in great shape because I don't want Jimmy to kill me in these sprints. And I want to be able to keep up and also be in shape. So, but we learned so much, and we were excited because we felt like we had a chance to be good. We were learning. I remember Lloyd Moreland shared this with me. He goes, Coach made us do left-hand layups, and if we missed one, we had to start over. And I go, oh yeah, I remember that. That's right. So if we missed one, we had to do it again and again and again. You
remember our first practice? I made y'all shoot right-handed layups and made you shoot left-handed layups. Nobody could make a left-handed layup.
No.
And
no,
so
nobody
that's
could make
what we worked on. Nobody could dribble left-handed. Nobody could shoot left-handed. Nobody could make a left-handed layup. So
that's right.
Keith has an affinity for left-handed things because he is left-handed.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Does it click now, Dennis?
It does. That makes perfect sense.
Everybody would be so frustrated because we would just be like, man, I can make really good shots over here, and he's like, but you can't do anything on that side of the goal. He said, and if you do, I'm gonna block all your shots.
Well, Dennis, the reason you didn't remember me being left-handed is because by that time I had worked on being amphibious.
Yes, exactly. There we go.
No, I mean, literally, you can't be a triple threat if you can't go in both directions. If you can't handle the ball in both directions, you can't. At least shoot close to the goal with both hands.
And as a team, we did. We got better at everything. Defensively, we really got good. And we didn't know how to play the year before. I remember that Park Lane game the year before, and I shared that with you. They beat us by 50. And all they ran was screen and roll the entire game, and we didn't stop it once. I mean, we didn't know how to stop it. They just kept running it over and over and over. I remember I was getting screen, trying to go. We didn't know what to do. We couldn't stop it, and that changed because no one ever showed us how you can do this. You can, you can trap it. You can switch it. We didn't know any of that. So we so that. And just our toughness on D, blocking out, we were tough, with a little extra put, right, JT? A little extra on the block out, right, JT?
Oh yeah.
Whoever told you basketball was a non-contact sport lied to you.
I don't think we can get away with that these days, Coach.
Let me
They'd
tell
be
you how
throwing us
passionate
out.
Keith is. This is like a 6th grade little dribblers. We're playing against people I go to school with. I'm implementing some things. I've had the benefit of listening to him coach to multiple teams, so I've got a little bit of understanding. But I go in to just swat for the ball, and I mean I didn't even make contact with the guy. It was the perfect swat. Took the ball, started going for the layup. Referee, he's just a young high school kid. Referee calls it, and he just blows his whistle and says, "No foul, just reaching." And Keith said, "What?" He said, "What did you just call?" And he walked over there, got up on his face. And I mean, one of the coaches, it was her son that was refereeing, the other coach's son. And halftime comes around, and Keith's so upset. We lost little dribblers by one game, I think. I don't remember what it was, but you would see Keith in the middle of halftime. He'd walk over there and said, "Y'all get over here." And he had that little fold-up metal chair. I don't know if he had one for y'all too. He had a little fold-up metal chair. He'd take that chair and slam it down in the middle of the gym. And he'd say, "Y'all sit down. I got something to say." And these are all the parents are just wide-eyed looking over here.
That's funny.
This is little dribblers, man.
Dennis, that's an exact. I'm meek. I'm mild. He's never raised my voice.
He's
Never,
just, he's just.
But let me tell you something. For a referee to call reaching as a foul when you don't touch anybody, the foul was reaching.
Yeah, that's a bad
Oh
call.
my gosh, that was one of those that I could not contain myself. Let's just use that word.
Let's just say he was very passionate.
Very.
Oh my
very.
goodness. Let me tell you, my one thing was my first year out of college, I refereed. I was a referee. And you can rest assured there wasn't a thing a coach could teach me that I didn't already know out of that rule book. So when I started coaching, I mean, I thought it was a mortal sin for me to know the rules better than the referee out on the court trying to call a game that was involving one of my teams. And I don't know if you remember this, Dennis, but I always kept a folded up high school rule book in my back pocket everywhere we went. You remember that?
I remember that. Absolutely.
Yeah. Well,
absolutely. Yeah.
Toughness.
It was a great year, and I do remember quite a few games. The ones that I remember were a couple of tough road trips. We won some games. We surprised people early in the year. I remember going to Columbia in a really testy game. I remember Chamberlain Hunt and a meet. Those were testy games that we won, pulled out tough games.
Well, everybody was used to y'all being the patsy.
Oh, yes.
Y'all were a definite win.
Everybody. We absolutely surprised people. Surprised people. And then our trip to Delta State was like one of the big highlights because none of us had ever played anywhere but small little gyms. And that trip to Delta State really opened our eyes. That was like an eye-opening experience. It was a great experience. I can't remember, who did we play? I'm trying to remember.
Jackson Academy.
Okay, Jackson Academy. Which
Trey Holmes, he was there.
Right,
big,
right. And
boy.
Great program. And we're like, okay, we're going to get tested. Here's our test. Can we go in there and compete with them? And it was the pregame. I remember the pregame before the Delta State game. And so we're like, oh my God, all these people are going to be here waiting for the other game. They're going to be coming in and watching us. We were excited about that. Of course, we were probably nervous, but we had probably one of the best games of the year. I mean, we played out of the world. We played just tough, ridiculous defense on them, and just we killed them. We blew them out. And that was just such a great – after that game, I think all of us believed, okay, we can win. We're going to win this. We're going to win this season after that game. Like, I remember everything about it, the bus ride home. We were so happy.
Oh, yeah. Y'all played great. Y'all played great. And you played in front of that college crowd. And that was, for those who don't know, the coach at Delta State invited high school teams to come every now and then and play a full high school game, but it was like a double header. The high school team would play before the college game took place, and it gave college kids a chance to see a big coliseum and see a big crowd, and you're playing in front of college coaches, that obviously they would know if you were doing well and or not doing what you're supposed to do. And I can tell you this. Mel Hankinson was a Delta State coach, and he complimented you guys. He couldn't quit talking about how tough y'all were and how that y'all obviously had learned fundamentals. And man, he was really proud that y'all had won that game. And it was against a tough team. Dennis Morgan was the coach, and Trey Halsey was the he was a fine young man, and boy, he knew how to play. And so we knew we had to do it right, or we were going to
Absolutely
not come out looking too good. And Dennis, y'all really did. I think we beat them by 20 points maybe. And
yeah, absolutely.
I
was 20.
That's another one. I think they were thinking about the CA of the year before, but y'all
They were.
y'all definitely.
What position did you play for Keith, Dennis?
I played mainly point guard. It's sometimes, I would not call myself a combo guard because I at that time I couldn't shoot very well, but I would say point guard. And sometimes I would just play if Jimmy was playing the point and he was more athletic. Jimmy was very athletic, and sometimes he would play the two. Jimmy Ingram, sometimes he would play the one. Ingram. Yeah, sometimes he would play the one, and our lineup changed. I started some games I was 6-man, came off the bench as soon as somebody got in foul trouble, depending upon who we were playing, But yeah, I remember my focus was play tough defense and really get us into our offense, get guys into position to score. And I tried to get the ball to Greg. It was no secret that I tried to get it to Greg as much as possible.
Yeah. Well, Dennis, let's talk about that Park Lane game, because this to me, this was the crowning moment for the kid that I got, that I had come to have such a great admiration for from the summer practices when I met your dad, and he had given me some background on you. So talk about that Park Lane game.
Well, I remember thinking.
You said that you got beat by 50 the year before.
50, right about 50. Right about 50. And they were ranked 1 or 2 in the state. We knew they were going to be tough, defending state champs, coming to our place. And I remember, you came up with the game plan in which we spread the court out and kind of let Greg go one-on-one where they couldn't help on him. And they struggled trying to figure out how to defend it. And Greg was just playing great that game. He was taking the ball to the basket and scoring. We had the early lead. I remember a lead at halftime, and we were holding on to a slim lead the whole game. It was touch and go. We had some foul trouble on our part, and so some kids were. I think a couple of kids might have even fouled out. It's hard to remember, but we had to hold the lead toward the end, and in the last couple minutes. I think they started fouling us a little bit because we were ahead, and we were doing a good job. And then it got down to the very end. I think we had a 1-point lead super late in the game. No,
we were tied.
Okay,
we were tied we were tied when you got your opportunity.
Okay, we were tied. Yeah, we were tied, and I remember I got fouled late, maybe with 6 seconds left, 5 seconds left, or something late in the game.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so it was 1-1 at the free throw line. And I will say this, I believed I was going to make both shots. I went to that free throw line, and I'm like, in my mind, I cannot let this team down. I cannot let them down. I've got to make both of these. And luckily, thank God I did. And then they tried to throw the pass long. And I remember, me and another player went up and tipped it away. It was two. Both of us, whoever was playing the back, maybe Mark or somebody, but we both tipped the ball away at the end, so the guy couldn't catch it, and then the clock ran out.
That was it. And
yeah.
And Dennis, I bring that one up because you said you luckily they went in. No, those were two of the prettiest free throws it could have been. They were number 2 in the state. And here's what I want to say about Park Lane. They were coached by a real good coach, Dale Watts. He was a Bobby Knight style coach, just like I was, just like Steve Reeves was at Jackson Prep. And we taught y'all just like every protege of Bobby Knight there ever was. Well, that was Dale's team, and I can tell you he paid y'all a lot of compliments after that game was over. But when you made those free throws, they weren't luckily going in. You made some really good free throws, good solid free throws. They wasn't bouncing around on the rim. It was sweet, sweet, sweet. And I'm going to tell you, Dennis, it was especially sweet to me because, like I said, I don't know this, but I think I may have been the only one on our team that really knew what your history was.
Oh, you probably
I thought
were.
that was.
Yeah. I'm sure you were. I'm sure you were. I don't think I told anyone ever.
Okay, well, that's why to me, when Dennis Smith won that game against Park Lane Academy, number 2 in the state, eventual overall state champions.
Yeah,
and
they won the whole thing. Yeah, they did. I knew that.
Yeah, they had 2 losses.
Yep.
And
They did.
the other loss was to Jackson Prep.
Right.
And us.
Right.
They had 2 losses, and y'all were one of them.
Yeah.
And you were the one that made the winning free throws in the clutch.
I'll take the credit for finishing them, but I give Greg a lot of credit too because he got us there. He got us there.
Well, offensively, but here's what I'm going to tell you. I want to tell you what Coach Watts was saying about y'all. He said, Coach, my boys say y'all are the toughest bunch they ever have to play. And man, I mean, my chest couldn't be any bigger.
Yeah, other kids had great. I mean, I remember, Jimmy played well, Mark played well. I mean, Robbie, all those guys.
They struggled to get points.
I mean, they made some big baskets that game. That was a great. Great game.
And on defense, I mean, Robbie, Mark, Timothy.
Right.
I mean, we were so tough. We were so stingy with points, and that team was used to scoring 60 points a game. Night in and night out. If they only scored 60, they were having a tough night. And boy, we really proud. I was so proud. I was proud of us, but I was mainly proud of you, Dennis, that you were the one that made those game-winning free throws. So.
Well, I appreciate that.
Are there any other stories you want to tell about our CA days real quick?
I mean, the Jackson Prep game, I remember we gave away and we had them, we had them beat, and that would have been nice to win those back-to-back games. It was a little tough, I think, because we played them like the next night or the 2 nights later.
The next day we played
Park Lane. That might have been a little tough because we were on an emotional high from winning the Park Lane game. Now we were playing great at that time, and I don't know if we ran out of gas, but they got us late in that fourth quarter, and we were right there with them though, the number 1 team.
Full court man-to-man, full court man.
Yeah.
Full court man-to-man, trap and press. That's all Prep ever played.
Yep.
And we had a 4-point lead on them with a minute to go in the game. We had beat the number 2 team the night before,
right,
and had the number 1 team
on the
road, a 4-point lead and the ball with a minute to go. And we could
you remember your losses more than your wins always.
Oh,
right?
Well, especially ones that we should have won.
Tough losses,
had a chance to win, and we just couldn't keep it. Boy, they were tough. And they that last minute of the game, they went ahead, and I think they ended up beating us by 3.
It was. It was close. It was close.
Well, Dennis, we want to transition to you moving on from high school. So here's what I'm going to ask you. I want you to just tell me if you remember these phrases. Nose on the ball.
Yep.
Keep the dribbler between your knees.
Yep.
Never let an opponent go through the lane without bellying up and bumping him away from the basket.
Now, I remember that the most. That's what
the belly up is the worst.
the bumping and I remember we would always bump the cutters, always.
That belly sticks out as far as it'll go.
I remember pushing them really with our forearms and stuff. I mean, and they let us play. They wouldn't call that a foul.
Well, I do remember what I told you, Dennis. If you do it right, they never call it.
You don't get caught, right?
That's right.
It ain't a foul till you get caught.
Right.
No wasted dribbles.
Yeah, we were bad. We had trouble with that early in the season. We did.
You didn't have trouble with it long, did you?
He still to this day will be watching the game and he'll see somebody get the ball, dribble once, and then stop. And he said, wasted dribble. That recliner he's got in his house has got imprints of his hands just gripping the sides for being mad about it.
Y'all talking bad now.
Well, you can't. Well, yeah, exactly. The coach comes out in him. Absolutely. That's the truth.
Well, that was my biggest thing is wasted dribbles because, oh my God, I'm not going to overkill that one. All right. No dime duck passes.
Yeah, we struggle with that too, throwing hard passes. But we learned quickly, two-hand, right on the money, had to be hard, be ready to catch it. That was one of the, again, we had a lot. We came a long, I mean, and this is what great coaching can accomplish. We came so far in that 1 year. It's amazing how far we came. It really is.
You did not take your eye off the ball if Keith Shelton had that ball. It didn't matter which way he was looking. It didn't matter what you were doing. You did not take your eye off the ball because I've had one or two bloody noses from not paying attention to where he was or what he was fixing to do with that ball.
Absolutely.
Those are some hard passes.
And you better catch it. I remember, Greg and I both said, boy, if we didn't catch that ball, he'd be right up on us. Catch the ball. It's like,
oh my goodness. Well, at least y'all are both saying it with smiles on your faces. So, all right. On offense, make all 5 opponents play defense all the time.
Yeah, I know we ran some motion. I know we ran some flex. I remember that.
There's going to be any standing around on offense.
Yeah, we were continually moving, as I recall.
When the ball touches your hand, square to the basket and be a triple threat to the defense.
Yeah, and again, that was something we didn't even know. I mean, triple threat, you would think you would learn that. Like these days, you learn that as a little kid growing up in high school. We didn't know what that was till that year, honestly.
If you toward the ball, be ready to go away from the ball and be looking for set a pick. If you're away from the ball, be ready to come toward the ball off of a pick. You remember hearing that?
Yeah, I do. And I think our 3-on-3 and 4-on-4 games really helped with that because we would work on the motion stuff, setting screens, coming. That really helped us really understand the game and spacing when we were doing that in the gym. Definitely made us better players. For sure. And
one of my big things is block out on shots.
That was our number one. I mean, besides playing tough D, we did block out hard. I mean,
you remember the Union Academy game when Union shot the ball one time and it's miraculously I have no idea what caused it, but all 5 of their players ended up on the floor, and Jimmy and I think you were just like skipping down the court. One of you is going to shoot a layup because none of them were even on their feet.
And they didn't call a foul. That was
no
what
foul.
amazed me.
No foul.
No whistle blown, and they were all on the ground. I was just happy they didn't call a foul on us. But that happened more than once. So we put a lot of players on the ground, and you were going to
get tough. Oh, Robbie Boone, man. I mean, he would come in at the timeouts or at halftime coming in the dressing room. Well, he could tell some stories about stuff he had just pulled on some of his opponents. And Robbie was what, 5'6"?
Right.
I mean, we have a 5'6" post man. And I'm telling you, he could take a 6'6" kid and turn him into a 5'4" kid in the blink of an eye.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Oh, I loved it. I loved it. Well, tell me this: what'd you do out of high school? Once you left us, we had a good season.
Right. We did.
So proud of you guys. We went to the state playoffs. Then heck, I lost you. You graduated on me.
Yeah, I ended up going to Southern Mississippi, and I majored in business banking and finance. I told you this. I started out in journalism because I thought I wanted to maybe be a sports writer, but then when I did, like, I was talking to the Hattiesburg American, and they didn't make any money. They were so poor. I'm like, well, I can't even rent an apartment for what they make. So I changed my career. So so I majored in banking and finance, and I enjoyed it. I had some really good professors. Enjoyed finance and economics. Went to the London School of Economics. I was like one of the top 2 or 3 kids there at Southern Miss, so I did an exchange program. And then when I got out of Southern Miss, I moved to San Diego. I followed my sister. She was out there because her husband was in the Navy. San Diego is a big Navy town, and he was stationed there. So I followed my sister, who was 10 years older, and I worked in banking for 5 years. I worked for a savings and loan for 2 years, and then at a big bank in downtown San Diego for 3 years, and like trust fund investments for.
Mm-hmm.
Yep, exactly. Yeah, my job was not interesting though. I wish it was. I did all the grunt work, so I was doing the paperwork and the wiring the money, and I wasn't a decision maker. I was the lackey. I was the grunt work person. So those are my first 5 years out of college.
Well, okay, so you're in California, Southern California. How did you get into coaching?
Well, in the back of my mind, I always thought, I'd like to coach basketball, partly because of the experience I had at Capaya, partly because I was just a huge fan of the game, and I loved watching it on TV. And of course, everyone thinks they can do it, right? Everyone thinks, oh, I could do that. I could coach that, right? Well, no, we know that's not the truth, but everyone thinks they can. So in the back of my mind, I want to try this. So I had a friend that I met through another friend, and he was a volunteer coach for school near the bank. It was Point Loma High School. So I just got in the car after work one day. I drove down there, met the athletic director. They had quite a good football program, and he introduced me to the basketball coach. And he told me, hey, we're starting a 9th grade team. We haven't had a 9th grade team before. Here's, come watch a few practices. I did. I really enjoyed it. And that year I worked still working at the bank, and I started coaching the freshman team. Now, let me tell you, that first year, I was not good. I was not a good coach that first year because you believe you know what you're doing until you get there. And then you're like, wow, this is harder than I thought. All the decisions you have to make, everything that's going on, all the adjustments, and you're like, whew, this is not easy, So I had a big learning curve. I was like, it was a shock, like, wow, I got to get better at this if I want to do this. Now, I loved it. I loved doing it, but I realized I wasn't that good to start with. So I put it in my mind, okay, I want this program to be really successful, and I want me to, these kids to be successful. So from there, I just became immersed in basketball. I told you we were lucky. The coach, Dave Arrows, he signed us up for this clinic, and I told you it happened to be the very first year that Nike did their basketball coaching clinics. And so we drove up to to a hotel in Anaheim, California, in a tiny little convention room. Okay. And there was only like 50 or 60 coaches there, high school coaches. But yet they were bringing in all these famous college coaches to come talk to us, and speak to us. And it was Bobby Knight, Jim Valvano, Gene Cady, Jim Boeheim, and they had Dick Vitale there as well. So I remember those and they came out and spoke to us, and it was so inspiring. Just listening to them is like, from that moment on, I'm like, okay, I've got to do this. This is what I want to do, and at that time, Coach, they just drew up some stuff on a little whiteboard. This was in a tiny little room, not that many people. But since then, these clinics have exploded to the point they're all over the country. In Las Vegas, they have it in the Orleans Arena, which seats 9,000 people. It's over 3 days, so the clinics have exploded, but that was the very first one in 1992.
So right place, right time, and
Right
boy,
place,
you're
right
there.
time. Yep, right place, right time. And so I wanted to, again, I wanted to learn. So the other thing I did was I would watch games on television. I tape them. These were college games. I would draw up everything that the teams were doing. And I got the idea, wait, what if I, like, I'm scouting like a team, and what if I send it to their opponents, like the coaches, and say, okay, here, see what you think of this. I've done this for you, and they would call me back. I would get phone calls from head coaches of these college teams going, oh, this is pretty good. How much money do you want some money for these reports? And I go, sure. And they send me like a small check or something, but then they would also invite me to come to their camps and start coaching at their camps. So I learned a lot at these camps. And that was the second year I was coaching. I went to North Carolina State, Jim Valvano, and Georgia Tech, Bobby Crimmins, Arizona, Lou Olson. So I was going to these camps. Now I was coaching specific things. So I was learning even better how to do all these things at these camps and meeting these great coaches and just honestly asking questions. How do you do this? How do you do this? How do you do this? And of course, I'm writing down everything. That really helped. And from that point on, I felt like I had a better grasp on everything. And like, if somebody was going to trap me or whatever, 3/4 court, okay, I know what to do. I'm not going, what do I do? I know what to do now. So I just felt way more confident. So that really was a big help. And I was immersed, I was coaching the 7th and 8th grade team, 9th grade team, JV team. I coached 3 teams at once for a couple years. And the program really took off. We started out slow, got better, won a couple league titles with that team, Point Loma, San Diego. And our last 2 years, we were just really spectacularly good. We went to the finals of the section with San Diego was about 100 teams, made the regional playoffs, lost the next year, finals of the section, won the regionals, and got to the final 8 of state. It was the final 8 of the state tournament in California. And we ended up playing the number 1 team in the nation, which was Compton Dominguez at the time. And they had 2 future pro basketball players on their team. I told you, Tyson Chandler and Tayshaun Prince. Yeah.
I mean, those are names that anybody who's followed basketball would know. But I mean, to think of where you started with a 9th grade team that didn't even exist, and
right,
just a few very short years later, you're playing for the state championship.
Yeah,
the state of California.
It was amazing how far we were able to go with that team. And again, it's nothing but hard. It's hard work, commitment, a lot of nights in the gym, just everything it takes to get there is just a lot of hours, and working hard. And that was a great experience. And I was in the midst of all that, I got my teaching credential, I started substitute teaching, and that was the start of my teaching career. So that school didn't have a job for me. So I was applying for different jobs. And the funny part of the story is I took a job, which at a small school. I ended up deciding I had a couple offers. I took a job at a small school in Central California, which was almost very much like Copiah Academy. I met with the principal, who was a former basketball coach. This is one of the reasons I took the job. because he was a former basketball coach, and I knew he would support me. And he goes, tell you what, he goes, we're not very good. We got some good athletes, small school, 200 kids. Come watch a practice. I go to watch the practice, and I'm like, wait a second, these kids are athletic. For their size school, they're very athletic. I go, same situation. They just haven't been taught what to do. And so same scenario. And I stayed there, 3 years. And we turned that around from a 4-win team to, 13 wins to 15 wins to 21 wins, made it to the quarterfinals of the section and all that. So that was very rewarding. I equate that very much to similar to Kapai Academy. Yeah. So that was really amazing.
Well, here's what I want to ask you. The coaching part, the teaching part, I've often said that if money didn't matter, I believe I could spend the rest of my life coaching basketball. But Dennis, I don't know if today's world is, can stand somebody like me.
It's tougher. Yeah, it's tough today in today's world in the teaching environment. Again, we talked about how tough it is to, for the average American to live these days, and teaching is tough because, the pay isn't increasing, with the other jobs, in the world. Mm-hmm. And so, credit to all teachers who do it and all coaches, high school coaches who do it. You got to love it. You got to love it. If you don't love it, then you're in the wrong place because you're not doing it for the money. That's for sure.
Yeah. Well, I know I did love it. And y'all were such a great group of kids because, it's like I showed y'all a few things, y'all saw them work. And from then on, y'all were hooked. I mean, y'all, if I'd told y'all you could walk on water, every one of you would have drowned trying. Well, man, that's joy. That is so rewarding to see kids who couldn't do it today and tomorrow they can, and you were the one that made the difference. Well,
it is, and people who haven't coached and haven't done that don't quite understand the feeling. It's an unbelievable feeling, really. It really is. It's so rewarding. So when you see teams accomplish more than they're capable of, they outperform what they should have done, and its success is outperforming. You may not win the title, but to outperform what you were before by a long shot, that's a huge success. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's why
Keith never. I can tell you, Keith never lost his teaching spirit. He may be an attorney and by profession, but every opportunity he gets, we were working on an issue today. He came in the room and he called 2 of the other employees in, and he called me. He said he sat us down. And he said, "Now I'm going to show you this." He said, did I not tell you when this goes like this happens?" He said, "I hate being right sometimes, but sometimes I'm right." He's never lost his teaching spirit. He still teaches every opportunity he gets. So don't think he ever quit teaching.
Oh, I believe it. That's great. I love it. I love it. Yeah.
Well, that's why I mentioned, Robbie Boone earlier. I mean, Robbie took so much pride. The kid's 5'6". I mean, and he was the postman. He always played around the blocks.
Yeah,
it was the toughest cuss there ever was. I mean, and he took absolutely the most pride in the things he could do with the best, the biggest, the strongest players that always were put in the middle of the court. Well, I mean, Robbie could wear them out. I mean, he could turn them into nothing. And he took great pride in his competitiveness, and well, that just fed me. And then there's you, and there's Jimmy, one arm Jimmy. You remember me calling him one arm Jimmy?
I don't, but now that you mentioned it, made me laugh. So probably.
Well, you remember when he first got there? I mean, it's like you said, he was like greased lightning. He's the fastest thing you ever saw, as long as he was dribbling right-handed. But if somebody made him put the ball in his left hand, he was like a cripple. So, I mean, but there again, that's Jimmy. Jimmy would work and work and work to get better with that left hand. And man, every one of y'all, I just so much joy in taking kids that couldn't. And then we had such a great year and great season. We went to the playoffs. Man, so proud of y'all for that. And
it was great. It was fantastic. It really
Parents,
was.
parents
ahead,
watching
JT.
this, parents watching this, if you don't believe us, just have your kid go out and stand right under the goal with the hand that they are the weakest on. If they're right-handed, make them go and shoot shots with their left hand, 100 shots a day. And in a month's time, you'll see a major difference. It's uncanny if you just intentionally spend a little time on something like that. I would never believe it. I'm like, I'm right-handed. I'm never going to shoot a left-handed shot. But Keith would make us go out there after school and shoot
the
100 shots.
Yeah,
100 shots.
Right hand, the old Mike and drills. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Mhm.
And I may look like
Over and over.
I may look like a force to be reckoned with, Dennis, but I was in band for a reason. Keith was my coach, and I learned a lot. And I would say I was decent at basketball, but I could not shoot to save my life. I could post, I could steal a ball, I could play defense, I could get somebody else the ball, but I was not a good shot. I think I aligned with you there. I did not do a very good job at shooting.
Mm-hmm.
So, believe it or not, Keith put me in to give other people breaks. I did not get any special treatment.
That I believe. Oh no. Yeah, there's no way you were going to get special treatment. That's true. He was going to treat everybody. We got what we deserve. That's for sure. Yeah. Exactly.
But Dennis, here's what I want to do to finish up our program. I want you to, first of all, we're going to do two things. One, I want you to tell us about your times with these, national championship coaches. Some coaches went to Final Four. Tell us how you got so close to these guys.
Well, it was through the scouting reports. So it's through like I said, I would tape the games, okay? And I had these Nike pads from these clinics. I would just draw up all the plays. Like, for instance, I would draw up all of Virginia's plays, and I would send them to North Carolina State and Duke because they were in the same conference. I'd say, okay, I've watched them 7 times on television. Here's everything I see that they're doing, and I would send it to them. So they would call me back and say, okay, that's pretty good. How much, you want some money for the reports? And after a while, I'm not sure, they'd send me a couple $100 or something. But then they would also invite me to come there. They would say, okay, come to our camp, you can come work our camp. And that was great. I was like, oh, I'll absolutely be there. I had no hesitation. I'm going to come to that camp and work your camp. And of course, you didn't make much money. The camps were about a week long at a time. And you were other coaches that they would invite, and there were team. You pick your teams, the high school kids. You'd play tournaments, but it was such a great way to meet not only the head coach but the assistant coaches, who were also brilliant coaches. So you were just learning from the best, So some great experience. I have some funny stories. Bobby Crimmins he had a good sense of humor. One of the funniest things I've seen was he gave an award for anybody that would take whoever takes the most charges at his camp was going to get a huge award. But
you knew how to teach that.
Yeah. Okay. But now this is the caveat that was funny. He goes, as long as any coach can see you, you can take the charge anywhere you want. You can take it in the cafeteria. You can take it outside.
Oh, man.
Yes. Outside outside the library at the school. So we'd be walking along. These kids would run up to somebody and take a charge. We'd be sitting there like, what's going on? We'd be like 1 point. And it was hilarious. So he had a great sense of humor.
Exactly. Oh my God. Who was that?
That was Bobby Crimmins. Yeah, that came up with that.
Georgia Tech, Final Four.
Yeah, Georgia Tech. That was pretty funny. In the cafeteria, you'd see the trays flying because they'd be taking charges.
That is hilarious. Oh my gosh.
Did you get bonus points for being kind of like soccer, acting like you're
you had to sell it. Yeah, absolutely. Had to sell it. And then one time Bobby we were doing, he was kind of bored. We were doing some stuff. He goes, I'm bored. He goes, let's play dodgeball. And I go, Coach, I go, you want to play dodgeball with these basketballs with all these kids in the gym? He goes, yeah. So he calls timeout, tells the kids, okay, for 5 minutes, we're going to play dodgeball. And when I say go start, and I'm like, Coach, like, are you sure? And he did it. And all of a sudden, me and Bobby Crimmins are under this table as basketballs are flying all over, hitting kids in the head. They're going down like fly. And I looked up, I go, Bobby, you know, are you sure this is probably not a good idea? You know, he's looking around. This is funny. He goes, this is funny as hell. And I go, it's funny, but he stopped it about a minute later. But I said, okay, you're a little different.
That's hilarious. Well, who else did you get close to?
Well, Lute Olson was one of my favorites. You know,
tell everybody who Lute Olson is.
Yeah, he's the Hall of Fame coach of Arizona, was at Iowa. And I went out there for 2 years straight and was very lucky. I enjoyed the camp. This was when Steve Kerr was with the Bulls, with Michael Jordan and the Bulls. And Steve Kerr would come back. He would come back to the Arizona camp and be there with now the coach of the Golden State Warriors, would be there at the camp with the kids, you know. And Lute was just an amazing person. He was like a first-class gentleman. He would always look you in the eye, call you by your name, you know. Now, I will say not all coaches are like that. Some coaches are, you know, have their arrogance and, you know, don't treat all the high school coaches with, you know, the respect that Lute would. And I just had a great time at the camp, learned a lot. And I had some success at the camp. I won the camp title one year where, you know, we picked our kids, and that was it. I won the camp championship, you know. And he invited me and some coaches over to his home, and that had never happened. You know, he was the only coach that had ever invited me to his house, you know. And it was really a first class gentleman. Loved him. And I went to some other big camps. I went to Utah with Rick Majerus. I went to Louisville with Rick Pitino. I watched Duke's practices. I went with Mike Krzyzewski. I didn't get into work it, but I was in the area and I called, and they said, yeah, come by. We're going to be, you know, doing some stuff, summer practice, shooting around. Come by. And, you know, and I did. I took obviously I'm going to go over there. So I got to talk to him a little bit. I will say one thing about Mike that's Coach K, amazing.
Hold on. Mike Krzyzewski, 5-time national championship winner at Duke. So just so everybody know who he's talking about.
Absolutely. At one clinic I was at, Mike was there, and they brought out just a local junior college team to so he could show the plays that he runs. He was going to show some of his motion offense, and this impressed me to no end. And he talked to us coaches. He would shake your hand, look you in the eye, say, "Nice to meet you, Coach Smith." Nice to meet, you know, whoever. And so he gets these 10 kids out there in the court, and he's, "What's your name? What's your name? What's your name?" to all 10. They start running whatever he tells them to do, and this amazed me. In the first minute, Coach, he knew every single kid's name, plus all the coaches that he had just met. He knew their name.
Oh, goodness.
I was stunned. Of course, you know, you went to West Point, you know, but I had no idea he was that amazing. And his communication skills were just, there's a reason he's so great, is that his communication skills are off the charts. He positive energy right off the bat. He made you feel like you're important, that you could do anything. And he told me one thing that I use today. With all my players, all my teams, whether it's tennis, whether it's basketball, whether it's whatever. He said in the off season, what he used to do was when the season ended, he would immediately start calling his players, and he would say, you know, you had a good year. You know, you averaged, you know, 12 points, whatever, 6 rebounds, whatever assists. He goes, but I really think you could be all conference this year. You know, what are you going to do to be all conference? I believe you're going to be all conference. What are you going to do to be all conference? You know, and then he called the next player, you know, you know, you had a fantastic year. You were all conference this year. You should be all American this year. What are you going to do to be all American? And he would do it every single day. Every single day, call it. And what are you doing? What are you doing to be great? Because I believe you're going to be that great. What are you doing to be that great? And so I've always used that technique. Nowadays, you can, because you text people. Back then, you had to call, right, and leave messages. But even the players, I once heard Bobby Hurley say he would just pester him and pester him and pester him constantly and constantly and constantly. But it was the motivating factor of believing you could be something that you weren't at the time. You could be that much better. So just a testament to, how to make somebody better, how to motivate them,
Well,
really.
Dennis, what are you doing now?
I live in Gulf Breeze, Florida, which is a suburb of Pensacola. I'm a teacher at Washington High School in Pensacola, Florida.
How'd you get there?
Well, I was in California for a long time. I was out there, teacher for 19 years. And so from 1986 to 2013, I was in California. And then I met my now wife. She was a student at William Carey when I went to Southern Miss, and we reconnected after my mom passed away. And she knew my parents through her brother. We were friends, and called me. We talked for a long time. We just kept in touch. And then she came out to visit, and we just, it's one of those things. We, just connected right away. And I ended up moving, to Florida, to be near her, and she had two young daughters. Now my stepdaughters, of course. And so that's why I moved to Florida. Really, I got married and decided to make the move from California to Florida. And that's my family. That's Julie and Madison and Meredith, and me. That's like an Easter photo. Awesome. I'm at Washington High School teaching economics, which I love. My background, again, banking and everything, fits right up my alley. And I coached basketball for a long time, but I gave it up about 5 years ago, mainly because of the summers. As you know, Coach, there's no time off in basketball. And, I wanted to do things with my family in the summer. But I still coach tennis. I'm a boys tennis coach, and that was my second sport that I coached. I was basketball first and tennis second. And I've coached a few other sports. Yeah, there's one of my teams in California. 3 straight league titles. This team was like undefeated, regional, runners up, and went to, state tournaments and things of that nature. So I love tennis, enjoy playing it, one of my passions. Just enjoy it. And I like teaching still. I just turned 60. I got about 5 years to go before I can retire. So trying to make it to retirement. That's what I was telling Greg and some of the other guys spoke to on the phone. And great. It's fun.
Well, Dennis, we've so enjoyed visiting with you, but this is the other thing we need to do to wrap up. Here's what I want to ask you. If you had to give advice to a young player or to a young coach now, after all you've experienced, well, what would you be telling them?
Well, for the coaching part, I would say, honestly, just learn as much as you can. Go learn from the very best. Do whatever you can to seek out the very best coaches in the sport, because there's a reason they're there. The reason they're there is they're very good at it, and they have something to offer. And that's any profession, right? You want to seek out the very best so you can make yourself better, and the players it's just extremely hard work. Of course, like you said, the fundamentals of anything, whatever sport it is, and then putting in the time. Just you got to have a drive and a work ethic to put in as much time as you can. And whatever level you can get to, that's the level. Whatever your potential is, that's the level you want to reach. Whether it's just making the team, whether it's being, an all-league player, or whether it's making it to college, you're always striving to reach your potential, whatever that potential is. And if you've done that, you've accomplished a lot.
Yeah. Well, the title of our show tonight was Overcoming and Excelling. And I believe we've covered both of those topics using you, Dennis, as the example.
Well, I appreciate that, Coach. You know, and it's a joy to talk to you, and you know, obviously we'll keep in touch. You know, now that we've got back together and been able to reach out. So, absolutely. I've
enjoyed listening to you, Dennis, because it makes me feel good to know that Keith did not slow down when he started teaching my age group in middle school, high school. You know, I appreciate that about Keith. Everywhere we went, wherever we moved a lot, growing up. He introduced summer ball to every town he went to. They didn't know what summer ball was. These are all Texas towns, football towns.
Sure.
He introduced the summer basketball to the scene, and he did not slow up. He did not ease up whenever he became.
Well, I'm glad to hear that. I don't doubt that. I would never have expected him to.
A lot of what I hear you talk about in the 80s kept going through the 2000s.
That's fantastic. I love it.
Oh,
I like I said, I talked to Greg, and I'm going back to Crystal Springs, Coach, and here's a full circle. I'm fixing up my parents' home, and I'm actually renting my home in Crystal Springs to the new boys basketball coach at Kapai Academy, if you can believe it.
Oh my goodness.
Yes.
You have got some stories to tell, that young man.
Yeah, I do. Yeah, exactly right. So, and hopefully Greg, I think I'm going to get together with Greg here shortly. So we'll tell you some good stories.
Well, Dennis, thank you so much for your testimony. Your testimony is, number one, very inspirational. And I would like to think that there are going to be a ton of people who either watch tonight live or will watch it in the future, soon. And they will learn who Dennis Smith really was growing up and being as tough as you were on my ball team and being who you were and contributing what you did. And that's why the title of our show tonight was Overcoming and Excelling. And, you've lived it, buddy. And so thank you for coming on. We've enjoyed our time with you.
I still feel lucky to this day. Just keep going, right, Coach? Thank you.
Praise the Lord.
Yes,
praise
sir.
the Lord for you, Dennis. All right.
Thank you, Coach.
Thanks, Dennis.
All right. Good night.
Well, folks, that wraps up our show, and we do thank you, Dennis. We are so appreciative that Dennis came on and entertained us some and made us laugh a lot and reminisce a lot. But we do want to ask you to please subscribe to our channel. Please like this episode and share it to anybody that you think might be interested. And we do appreciate everybody who's watching tonight and will watch in the future. Thank y'all and good night.